Hi, we're excited to have Alex Castro from MCorp here tonight. We're at the Entrepreneurs Campus as part of the Entrepreneurs Showcase Accelerator program, where we're bringing in successful CEOs from the Northern California region along with investors from the Silicon Valley. Alex, thanks for coming out tonight. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
So just to open things up, why don't you just tell us a little bit about MCorp and the business that you're in and give us a bit of an overview.
Sure, absolutely. We were founded in 2003 here in Sacramento, and really we started out to be software as a service. But in 2003, in the market that we were in, we were a little bit ahead of the curve. So we dropped into what we knew, which was consultancy. But in doing that, we really wanted to define a new way of being a consulting company. Since then, in the last 11 years, we've really grown to a little bit over 100 people. We've got 3 specific product lines that we deliver to customers, both in state government as well as banking and finance. We're doing work here in California, Texas, and Australia. So we've evolved, and we use a really sort of entrepreneurially driven model to make sure that we're providing innovation to our customers and innovation to the industry, but it also keeps ourselves interested in what we do, and we create better outcomes and solutions for the customers.
So tell us a little bit more about the industry segments that you're focused on. You mentioned a couple, and maybe the types of services from a management consulting standpoint that you're providing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fundamentally, where our core competency is we found that in the world, there is a huge amount of legacy mainframe systems out there. And what we do at our core, as our core business, our core competency, is modernizing those systems into more new technology. And we've developed an entire roadmap to do that. So we took that process and we productized it. We create a method that it's repeatable, that customers can understand. We can show them exactly how they're going to do a specific piece of work, what the sequence is, depending on the type of product it is. So it's almost like it's an interactive map. They can say, okay, look, this is our project. This is, where we are in this stage, and we can now automatically map out what the steps are to get that done, and then we develop frameworks for all those things. And so then we train all of our staff in doing that. And so that has been the genesis of creating 2 of our other arms, which are in analytics. And in analytics, what we're really doing is less of the keyboard punching, but more the management consulting of, here's where you are in terms of your maturity. This is how you need to move out in doing data governance, analytical governance. How are you going to work with the business units to make sure you're leveraging these huge technologies, big data, and really getting something out of it? And so we developed an entire methodology there that really helps customers understand what big data is, how am I going to apply it, but more importantly, what's the tick list that I have to go through to build an analytics organization to serve what my needs are, my perceived needs are. Mm-hmm. On the other side, we developed what we call a readiness practice. And in that practice, what we do is we found that our customers are typically not ready for the engagement that they've hired us for. So if we're doing a $100 million modernization project, they've more often rushed into that and expect the consultancy to come in and define a lot of things. And what we want to do is make sure that we're successful. As a company, in our 11-year history, we have never failed a project with a customer. We have a 100% success record, and we are very proud of that, and we protect it viciously. So to do that, we develop tools that allow us to measure our customers' readiness, provide that in a metric back to them so that they can begin to fix the parts that are dependent on the project, and as a result, it allows the whole process to be much more streamlined. So as a sort of a continuity of process, we have this core technology practice that then has spawned on management consulting practices that really drive that. Where we've done it more successfully, or where our foundation is in the state of California government. Because of the scale, it's brought us a lot of experience, but a lot of credibility in terms of being able to apply this in a real constructive way.
So let's talk, if you don't mind, about innovation inside government. One of the things that we've been covering as part of the Entrepreneur Showcase program is these corporates evolving and beginning to crowdsource innovation from outside their 4 walls.
Yeah, absolutely.
And adopt it inside their companies. Yeah. So instead of just increasing the R&D line item, right, they're now looking outside for ideas, which is interesting for the startup community, obviously, right, many of the startups that we're serving. Right. Also within government, maybe you could speak a little bit about how your clients, government and others, are thinking about innovation, and how you think those trends might impact opportunities for you and maybe opportunities for startups that are out there.
Well, it's a great point, because I think that one of the places that's really been successful is in the development of drugs and medical devices, right? That's a big deal in the peninsula. So a lot of these companies get funded, and they're in essence the R&D branch for Johnson & Johnson, Merck, and all these other companies where they allow venture capitalists to pour money, like yourself, into these startups, right? Fund that R&D process, and then when it matures to maybe clinical trials or something, it then gets migrated and they go pick up a company, and instead of having to invest completely, they're doing this crowdsourcing process. What we've found is that in the industry, there's been a lot of analysis, especially in consulting, that consultancies have really dropped away from being innovative and bringing a new idea to the client and a new way of doing something for the client. And that's something that we really focus on every single day, is how do we create an innovative solution or an innovative approach that the client is really going to benefit from. So our banking and finance clients are really looking at how do we do better decision making in terms of the things that we're investing capital in. Anywhere from the consideration of Sarbanes-Oxley to the fact that, you know what, if I take a bad investment here, I'm going to get somebody like from CalPERS who's going to call me and saying, hey, are you the right management team to be in here? Right? Because we're not really considering or measuring things. So we've created a measurement that works like a credit score that helps them understand, is this the right project to move forward on? And for the first time, they have data-driven decisions instead of heuristic data, right? Mm-hmm. So we're helping them innovate how they're looking and making it decisions that are not just same old, but regurgitated in some other fashion, right? And so we're bringing that piece in. With government, it's a little bit more challenging because it's a very transformative process. There's a culture in government that you have to respect and observe. There are people there who really have joined government to be better citizens and help citizens, and so their mission is very citizen-focused, and so how do you help transform that and not violate some of the tenets that they've been instituted to for their entire career?
Are they looking to you as sort of a source of innovation yourself, or are they looking to you to filter interesting companies, technology, people, as they try and address internal problems? And
sure.
And because a startup has a hard time knocking on the door of a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oftentimes, if you're providing high caliber management consulting services,
right.
You've got the relationships to make decisions.
Sure.
Should startups in the Northern California community view you as a bit of an onboarding channel into maybe some of these clients, or how are the big companies interacting with you, and how might you interact with startup companies?
Well, I think that the way that a startup really can leverage companies like ourselves in finding a path into large organizations is through understanding how what they're trying to do works in parallel or in concert with what we're trying to do as a complementary process, right? And I think that's part of the pitch that happens when you're looking for partners, is how do you really position yourself as a complement to that partner, not a potential competitor or somebody that now the partner has to reconsider, as well, how am I going to sell this component to it? Because at the end of the day, you're going to a client who's very time and money driven, and they don't want to sit there and necessarily have to go through reams of different concepts that you're coming to them with. You're part of your responsibility there is to come to the client and say, we've observed this problem. Here is the solution path that we think would work best for you. Mm-hmm. And so we can filter through some of that a little bit and then bring it to the client, and it has to be a very collaborative process to do that. But the other thing in terms of entrepreneurial startups and groups that are really starting to push a product, everybody wants to go shoot elephants out the gate, and that's maybe not necessarily the best strategy, because that is an all-consuming strategy. And being able to build reputation and sort of industry capital, as it were, that you can actually go out and say, hey, look, we've done this within this circle, we're ready to move up to the next step, or within this context, and maybe add more users, more clients, move into a bigger part of your segment, really works a lot better because people want to see that incremental growth component.
Some proof points along the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Makes sense. So we know that innovation isn't quarantined to startup companies. Your
right.
company's doing some innovative
yes.
things.
Yeah.
I've seen a pattern with management consulting and service-oriented businesses where once they achieve a certain level of success, they start looking at growth strategies and innovation
right.
because of their deep understanding of customer requirements.
Right.
And in some cases, they start to look for product opportunities
right.
To scale their business with regard to growth. You guys have done some really innovative things
yes.
with that regard. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, the thing is that we want to keep it fun. I mean, part of the challenge in consulting is that it is an absolutely demanding career to be in. And what we want to make sure is that we're doing two things. We're maintaining an entrepreneurial culture within the company, and that we're also being able to do things that interest people at the same time that continues to drive energy into the client. Because if you're just going from client site to client site to client site, eventually you just get worn out, right? Yeah. So you want to be able
retention probably becomes an issue, huh?
Retention's an issue, but it's also not just retention, it's attraction of people. The thing that we've really benefited from in the last 11 years in business is that we have no drought in terms of finding great people. In fact, that we spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to onboard some people that maybe we don't have a clear role for them. And we've developed a next step process within our organization how to do that so that we're not, just simply hiring. But it's a learning curve that we still work with. I think that the thing that really has to be taken into account is that when you're driving innovation internally, there has to be a real embracing of that so that it's not just innovation for innovation's sake. It's how are we stretching the fabric of our client sets and looking for those little holes, those gaps in there that, wow, there's a solution that could really benefit a good segment in there. And so what we then try to do is, rather than having the traditional partner path that you have in a consultancy, which I just, in the age of the millennials, I just don't see how they're going to even relate to that, we've developed this entrepreneurial path. So when you come into the organization and you're coming through the ranks within MCorp, what's happening is that you are being groomed basically to look for opportunities where then you're going to be able to present and pitch internally ideas that you think could become services, products, or a new company. We'll walk you through that through iteration after iteration after iteration, and we don't care how many times you come and pitch. The fact that people are thinking and they're trying to innovate and they're trying to create something new is what I think drives a lot of their ambition in terms of the quality that they deliver to the client. Mm-hmm. So as they're beginning to do that, we're cultivating it, and as of today, we have 2 spin-off companies that we've produced. We've got a couple of products that we're developing internally. And it's really fostered this internal process where somebody as a millennial comes in, right, a younger person comes in, and then it's like, look, it's like if I work this many years, I get this title, and I get this raise, and I go through this whole process, that's all out the door. So what they're looking at now is like, what, I want to be that next entrepreneur. How do I get there? And so we look more at how do we spin people up and out into these new companies, these new product lines, these new things, rather than trying to just march them through, well, I'm a junior consultant, I'm a senior consultant, I'm a manager, whatever, right? And that tends to attract the same type of people that have always delivered great results, because the number one mantra in our company is you always deliver. Always deliver. No matter what happens, you always deliver. Yeah. And so that is embedded in them as they grow through the organization. And then as a result, when they're going to go and try to spin out a new concept, it's ingrained in them that no matter what you do, you deliver quality at the top. Right, and that's how you produce a good offering that people are going to be interested in. Yeah, right?
I've heard of that strategy being referred to as intrapreneurship, right? Where you're effectively manufacturing entrepreneurs and you're positioning yourself to spin them out. Our speaker from last week was Rick Nelson from Direct Technology, who talked about a similar model of having a successful staffing company and providing engineering services for a variety of companies, and then identifying these product companies. So there's definitely some models out there. Of sort of looking at innovation and understanding the customer requirements, and then taking advantage of those by building your own product companies. Right. You and I were talking earlier about AT&T and some of the innovative things they're doing. They have a foundry in the Silicon Valley where they're sourcing ideas from hundreds of thousands of employees, and then they have a model where they are not only funding those internal products, internal initiatives to fund new products, but also looking at how do they partner with outside startups to effectively fuel that effort with some innovative thinking? Sure. Have you guys, out of curiosity, have you guys considered taking, as you identify some of these new opportunities, instead of just staffing it internally and funding it internally, have you looked at maybe partnering with an outside startup company or bringing it outside? I'm not hitting you up for investing in your next venture yet. I'll stalk you and figure out where the biggest opportunities are. But I do see a model where the largest companies in the world are innovating by coming up with a deep understanding of the problem set, fueling a team of people to go uncover potential solutions, and then partnering them with innovative startups who have deep expertise in an area that could provide a potential solution. And maybe it's a 90-day project, or it's maybe it's a 6-month project, but it ends up being a pilot project for the startup, and it ends up being a potential solution for the big company.
Right.
Have you guys considered that, or have you seen that out in the marketplace?
I think so. The thing that we consider, there's several factors that come out about this, right? There's a lot of people who have that entrepreneurial ambition, right? And they're like, hey, look, I want to go do this thing, right? Regardless of age, regardless of background, right? They're like, I want to move this out. What some of this process does is help them recognize really what does it take to be the leader of an idea. You know, not necessarily a company, but an idea. Leading an idea is a tough, tough thing, right? Because you have to be its champion, its advocate 24/7 for as long as that idea is viable, right?
Yeah.
And that is demanding as anything goes. What we've realized also is that we can't fund everything, right? And I don't think it's smart for us to fund everything. So what we're trying to do is, as we spin these entities off and we're looking at creating these different opportunities, we know that we're going to wind up partnering with some kind of venture capital, angel funding, outside investors, potentially merging those with another company that's doing something similar or complementary, and eventually those things grow into something larger. So in essence, this is the seed. It's being mentored by groups of people internally, and of course we're consultants, so we know everything, right? And you know, we advise and we go through that process. But the idea is there that eventually there's going to be additional, you know, dollars needed, because if you're going to get the reach that you need to get, if you're going to get the expansion that you need to get, especially with product companies, you know, not as much service companies, product companies, you're going to hit that nexus point where cash is king, and you've got to be able to scale, but you just don't have the resources to do it, right? And so we anticipate that happening. And so, yeah, I think that that's an integral part of the whole process, and understanding how is it going to ebb and flow and how is it going to match up. And then as the leader of that idea, how does that mesh with what your expectations are in terms of what you want to get out of your idea?
Yeah.
Because as you go through the process, you get watered down a little bit, or maybe you're not, you know, driving all of it, and that's a very tough thing for some people to let go. And so,
Yeah.
you know, it's an educational process every step of the way, and what we try to do is make sure we mentor through some of the rough patches that people kind of tend to make those easy mistakes in, right, and give some guidance there. But then they've got to take it and explore it into the marketplace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're out of time for today, but thanks for sharing insights
Absolutely.
on your company and experiences that are going to be very relevant to startups who are able to watch this in the Velocity website.
Great.
You're here tonight for the panel on forming entrepreneurial teams, which
Right.
happen in the auditorium. We've got 15 CEOs waiting for you. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of questions and
Sure.
Pick your brain about, you know, how to build company culture and some of the things you've done in an innovative environment. So
Sure.
I appreciate your time today.
Absolutely.
And happy to, in a sense, contribute to the library of Velocity modules on best practices for building innovative companies, and just really enthusiastic about you being here, Alex.
Absolutely,
Thanks again.
my pleasure. Thank you.